Hi, Mr. Jones here, and if you're watching this, you've probably got an issue with an Apple computer's memory. I'd like to save you a lot of time and heartache that I went through trying to resolve my seemingly impossible situation. I'm using a 2 terabyte iMac, and I wanted to transfer 90 gigabyte file, a video file, to the iMac. It said insufficient memory. This was very confusing because I just looked at my Macintosh hard drive, and you can see it up on the screen now, and it clearly says that I have 1.29 terabytes free. So how could there be a problem? Did the usual things, rebooted, etc. Still the same problem. So the next thing I did was to bring up disk utility, and here it is. If you look at it, it tells a totally different story. It says I've got a 2 terabyte capacity drive, but it tells me that 1.93 terabytes is full. And I only have 49 gigabytes of free space. Therefore, I couldn't transfer my 90 gigabyte file. How could this be? On the one hand, storage is telling me I've got 1.2 terabytes free, and on the other hand, utility is telling me I don't. Okay, so I decided, let's have a look at my hard drive. So I right clicked on my hard drive, and here it is, and it says capacity 2 terabytes, available 1.29 terabytes. Crazy. It's saying the same thing as storage, but I still can't transfer files, and disk utility stubbornly keeps repeating you have no space on your drive. It took me a lot of time on the internet and searching, looking at YouTube. It's a confusing subject, and people said, it's due to system data. If you look down here, you'll see my system data at the moment is 425.03 gigabytes. So something in my system, indeterminate, we don't know what it is. It's something that Apple is using it for in my computer. The process is taking a vast 425 gigabytes, but that isn't my problem. My problem is that storage and a right click on the hard drive is telling me I've got 1.2 terabytes free. Have I got lots of documents? I do. I've got 1.4 terabytes of documents. But when I look at my screen here, thanks to iCloud, I'm only showing 144.75 gigabytes on the hard drive. So basically everything is up in the cloud. So what could I do? What a conundrum. Then when I was reading, I saw a mention of purgeable memory. Now this isn't mentioned on my storage. It's not mentioned when I go to disk utility. But when I right click my drive, here it is again. Available 1.29 terabytes, 1.24 of it is purgeable. What does that mean? Well, after checking online, looking at forums, and there's a lot of confusion out there, I tell you, there's a lot of confusion. This purgeable memory is memory such as the system data I mentioned earlier, which is being used by the Apple system. So the operating system is for some reason using up 1.24 terabytes of my disk space. What could it possibly be doing that needs 1.24 terabytes? Again, looked online, and it said, it could be a system data, it could be temporary files, it could be cache files, etc. When I look at all those things, yes, there are some savings in memory I can make. 20 gigabytes here, even 30 gigabytes, 40 gigabytes I can make. 1.2 terabytes? Absolutely not. So, I was basically lost. I can't use my computer, I couldn't do any video processing, I couldn't transfer anything to it. So I then saw one article of a gentleman who had the same problem as me. And what he said was happening is his 1.2, his purgeable memory, which should be available back at any time you want it. So it's okay, Apple's using it, the system's using it, that's fine. But if you need it back, I want to transfer a big file back, it will free up because it's being used for non-essential things. So why couldn't they do it? People have now mentioned that it appears to get stuck, that the purgeable memory isn't then free to you. Disk utility is telling you quite correctly you haven't got any memory, whereas storage and a quick look at the hard drive tells you that you do. Another person said, strange thing, it's probably due to Time Machine. Now, Time Machine is going to back up everything on your disk, and if it doesn't have access to your external drive to do the backup, it could hold very large files on your computer. So I went down a total rabbit hole, and even ended up using a software called Terminal to try and find out if I had any huge data files which were meant for backup. I do not have Time Machine turned on. I didn't see how it could be, but I went down that route anyway. Having done all of this, it said, no, I didn't. But now we're getting silly. This is a computer meant for using, not becoming a geek, not running programs like Terminal to try and find out what's wrong. So what is happening? Same person said, I set up Time Machine and I ran a backup and it cured the problem. And so it did with me. I put a 2 terabyte drive on, external, went to Time Machine, turned it on. It took all night, but in the morning I had 500 gigabytes of space back and a smaller amount of purgeable memory, which I can probably now actually access. So I was actually up to 1.5 terabytes of free space, purely by running Time Machine. So somehow Time Machine had locked up the system, locked up a huge amount of my memory with data, and once it had successfully managed to put a nice backup onto my external drive, it was happy and everything came back to normal. A good result. And so if you suffer from this issue, you can do the same thing. I am being ultra cautious, and the best thing to do, of course, is to run Time Machine. That gives you a complete backup from the start. And in my case, it was also the cure to the problem. So I will continue running it. One word about Time Machine. My data is 1.2 terabytes, 2 terabyte hard drive. It did one backup, but the second backup failed because it didn't have enough space. So I think probably I would need to put my 4 terabyte drive on there and redo it, and then it will automatically delete the oldest to make space for the newest. So I'm also going to move a lot of my video work onto a separate drive because that tends to clutter the system up as well. So my Apple iMac is now working perfectly. There is more decluttering I could do. I could get a lot of memory back. But the main issue of my purgeable memory being locked has been resolved by carrying out a Time Machine backup. It is the best way to backup, so I would normally do it anyway. I will produce a separate video to show how I declutter my machine without using software. I will do it very cautiously. It's a simple approach, but will have good results. I've learned a lot in the last few 2 days. I didn't really want to, but now I'd like to share that knowledge with you. If you would like to see that, please subscribe. If you like the video, please click on like, it all helps, and I will produce the new video in a couple of days' time.